Perfect. So before we begin with all of our questions, can you please introduce yourself to those who may not know you? This would include your name, position, where you live, things like that.
Yes, my name is Debbie Fosdick, and I'm the executive director of Hands of Peace, which is a nonprofit organization. I am based in Glenview, Illinois, outside of Chicago. Hands of Peace was founded here in Glenview. We also have a second site in San Diego, California.
Perfect. So we wanted to ask you, what does Hands of Peace mean to you as an individual?
Well, more than I could possibly say. Give you a little history. Hands of Peace was founded after 9/11 by a friend of mine. She wasn't a friend at the time, but the aftermath of 9/11 gave her the idea of bringing young people from Israel and Palestine and the United States together. And I heard about it through my church. Gretchen, our founder, is a member of my church, and she was speaking about it after the first year of the program, and that's the time I got involved. So I've been involved for over 20 years. I've played a lot of different roles in the organization, first as a volunteer, then as a board member. I've been chair of the board, and for the last almost a year, I've been the executive director. And it really has had such a large impact on my life. I'm just inspired all the time by the young people that we touch, by our volunteer community, by everybody involved in Hands of Peace. And in times that can be rather depressing, when you look at what goes on in the world today, in the U.S. and around the world, it's a beacon of hope for me.
Very nice. So what is the goal or mission behind Hands of Peace?
Okay. This is often misunderstood, so I'm happy to have the chance to clarify this. Our goal is to empower Israeli and Palestinians youth, along with American youth, to become agents of change. A lot of people, when they hear about Hands of Peace, they think that our goal is to create peace between Israel and Palestine. And although we would love to see that happen, we think it would be somewhat arrogant of us to think that we have that kind of power. We also think it's up to the parties involved to make their peace. So what we're trying to do instead is to give young people whose thinking is still somewhat fluid and maybe are not as dug into their positions as they could be when they get older, to give them the tools to better understand the world they live in, their own realities, their own narratives, and to also be better at listening and understanding the narratives of others. We think that by giving them those tools, we are then empowering them to go off and become agents of change in their communities. Some of them do go off and become peacemakers. We try to follow up with our alumni, and yes, many of them become involved in the peace movement in one way or the other. But even those that don't, we have a pretty good track record of alumni going off and doing important things in the world that may not be directly related to peace, but that are still making important contributions in their communities. So again, our goal is to develop the skills to create agents of change among young people.
Amazing. As an executive director for Hands of Peace, what are some of the challenges you've encountered in organizing this program?
Oh, well, that's a long list. One of them is simply communicating our mission and helping people to understand our mission. The topic of Israel Palestine is kind of a hot button for a lot of people, and some people that, you know, when they start to hear about it, they're kind of like, whoa, that's a hot potato. I'm not sure I want to get involved with that. Funding can be challenging, finding funding because of that. For some people, they see the situation as hopeless or as too charged or as political. Getting corporate funding, for example, you know, many corporations that may be otherwise generous see Israel Palestine as something that's that's just a little too controversial for them to handle. Individual volunteers sometimes see it as too controversial to handle. Some individuals already have their own deeply held perceptions of the situation there, and sometimes that's very one-sided. And so they may not embrace the mission that we're trying to accomplish, or they may not see it as a realistic mission. So that's a challenge. Another challenge is simply the logistics of bringing our young people together, both when we bring them here in the summer and when we try to bring them back together for alumni programming back home. There are all kinds of bureaucratic governmental restrictions that make that challenging. That we have to get visas for people, for Palestinians to be able to cross into Israel is extremely challenging. For even getting visas to come to America is challenging. So a lot of red tape that we have to jump through to make it happen. Convincing young people and their parents that this is a safe thing for them to do. If you've been raised your whole life to see the other as somehow dangerous to you, and in some cases with good reason, then it is asking a lot of teenagers to be brave enough to come across the ocean to be with strangers and to meet these people that they've been taught all their lives are dangerous. So we have to give a lot of credit to our young people, and especially, I think, to their parents for seeing the value in it and for taking the risk.
Right. And I do want to ask, when you say young people, can you mention the age range that of the program?
Sure. We're looking for high school teenagers. Our ideal ages are 15 to 17. We've occasionally had somebody a little bit younger, and we find that most of 14-year-olds, although there certainly would be exceptions to this, but generally may not have the maturity to engage in our rigorous dialogue program. We do have alumni that are older, but we try to keep at least our first year participants so that they still have a year of high school after they go home, because quite honestly, we're looking for them to help us recruit the next summer's participants. And it's helpful if they stay in high school. Also, Israelis after high school go into the Army, and we would like to give our young people a little more time to experience our alumni programming before they enter the Army, so that we can sort of solidify what they learned in Hands of Peace.
How would you say that the San Diego site and the Chicago site differ in terms of events and planning and such?
Mm-hmm. We try very hard to make them quite similar, and it's really quite gratifying to see how well our staff in the two locations work together. We're a very lean organization in terms of staffing. We started being almost entirely volunteer driven. Over time, we've developed professional staff, but we have a site director in each location. And then we have regional managers over in Israel and Palestine. We have 3 regional managers currently, an Israeli, a Palestinian, and a Palestinian citizen of Israel. So they recruit the Middle East kids to come here. But the program planning that goes on is really done by all of those people. The Chicago and San Diego site director and the regional managers work together to figure out what the programming is going to be. And with a few exceptions, almost every day looks the same in both locations. There are some nuances of difference. For example, in San Diego, one of the activities that we've done for several years that is very well received is we take the participants to the Mexican border, and we actually have them meet with young Mexican and Mexican American young people that live on the border. And the idea there is to help them to understand the challenges they face with border issues. is not unique to them. I mean, every border situation is different, of course, but we want to give them a taste of what somebody else's border issue looks like. We obviously don't have a border in Chicago, but so what we do instead is we try to expose the Chicago participants to some different neighborhoods in Chicago where there may be cultural uh, challenges across groups in the Chicago area. So we try to take them to low income areas because the area they're meeting in is fairly privileged. We don't want them to think that all Americans are privileged. So we take them to lower income areas. We have this year we took them to a Black History Museum and helped them understand the challenges that Black Americans have faced over the years and continue to face, again with the same goal as what we're doing at the Mexican border, which is to show commonality of these human rights issues that occur in different scenarios. But otherwise, the programming is pretty similar. We start the mornings with dialogue, where we bring them together with trained facilitators to talk about their lives, to talk about their challenges, to brainstorm, their different positions, hopefully to start thinking about potential solutions. And then in the afternoons, we have various workshops. We have them make films. We teach them storytelling. We go on field trips to do fun things. But the programs are fairly similar from one location to the other.
How have you seen Hands of Peace alumni use what they've learned at the program in their respective homes?
Mm. Well, a couple years ago, we had our 20th anniversary and we published a magazine. And that magazine, we chose 20 alumni to profile in the magazine just to highlight what some of our alumni are doing with themselves. And it's obviously it's anecdotal. It's not a statistical study of all of our alumni, but it gives a nice idea of what some of our alumni are doing. And I could point out several examples. We have one young woman who is really one of the absolute drivers of women's rights in Israel and has really led a very large women's movement with protest marches and all kinds of things, lobbying for women's rights. I can think of another Israeli who has been very involved in the environmental movement in Israel and developed goals for recycling and set up recycling containers along various parts of common areas in Israel. In Palestinians, we have a young man who actually came and spoke at our benefit this year, who was actually for a while, he went to law school, he became an attorney, he then went and worked for the Palestinian Authority for a while, and again, lobbying for just laws for Palestinians and just treatment of Palestinians. He has since left that and is now getting a master's degree here in the United States and is doing a fellowship to try to so that when he goes back home, he can encourage young Palestinian entrepreneurs in terms of how to build a business. So, he's done a whole lot of different things, but all with the idea of empowering Palestinians. We have we have a number of alumni who are physicians. I'm not sure what that's about, why we've ended up with so many physicians, but certainly people that care about other human beings and are expressing it through their career in that way. So Americans, our own site director here in Chicago, Emily, because she was a participant in the Hands of Peace program, she then studied peace studies while she was in school. She also was very involved in environmental studies. She went and did environmental work in Israel after school and went to graduate school in Tel Aviv, and became very involved in the juxtaposition of peace work and environmental work, because a lot of the issues over there have to do with environmental issues like water shortages and who owns the water and that kind of thing. So she was very interested in how environment and the Israel-Palestine conflict intersect. She has now become our Chicago site director. We have a tendency to grow our own in terms of our staff. Most of our staff, well, I don't know if most of our staff, but a large percentage of our staff are people that actually went through the program and grew up to want to continue their work with us.
Pretty cool. It's very inspirational to hear all those great stories. And now we would like to ask you some more personal questions, and these do not have to be related to Hands of Peace whatsoever. And our first one is, what are some of the dreams that you have yet to accomplish?
Well, one thing I should also tell you is it's kind of funny because I'm no spring chicken, so probably my personal dreams are more about bucket lists of travel things that I have yet to accomplish. I've been to Israel, Palestine 4 times. I'm probably about to go again fairly soon. I'd like to go to some other places as well. I have traveled certainly, but I would like to do more travel than I have done. I do sometimes ask myself, gee, you know, if I'm ever, we will at some point hire a new executive director at Hands of Peace. I have been doing this sort of on an interim basis. But at some point we will hire somebody that is in it for the long haul. And I ask myself what's next for me, but probably relaxing at this point. I had a long career as a human resources manager, and I took on this role after I had retired from that world. So my career objectives, I think, are pretty much met at this point. I'm just trying to figure out how to have more fun and also continue to make a difference in the world. I do sometimes ask myself on a real personal level, gee, why is it that all of your volunteer work is focused on a place that's thousands of miles away when there are problems right in your own backyard in Chicago? And so I do some things with my church to that effect, and I try to do some local political lobbying for various causes. But I sometimes think in the future I might choose to get more involved in some more local things. But I'll never forget about Hands of Peace. It will always be a big part of me.
Very nice to hear.
If you had one more thing to say to everyone around you, what would it be?
Quite honestly, we're at a bit of a crossroads at Hands of Peace right now. We have been, and this is very direct information, but we have been in a deficit spending situation for a while now. COVID was not our friend. Like many other nonprofits, our giving really dropped during COVID, and we couldn't have a program during COVID. We did actually have a virtual program, but that doesn't draw the same level of interest from donors as the face-to-face program. We did have a very successful program this summer and are hopeful that will re-spur interest amongst the donating community. But if the folks that are seeing this interview are in any way moved by what they've heard, first of all, I would encourage them to go to our website, which is www.handsofpeace.org. And read more. And there are videos on there that they can see to get an idea about what it is that we do. And if they are moved by that, then I would encourage them to hit the donate button, because we are in a major, we're looking at the organization right now, how we can economize and also how we can grow our giving. So that's important.
Yeah, it's definitely an amazing program that needs to be here forever until we can find peace. And that was the end of our questions. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this interview with us.
You're so welcome.
Thank you for all your insightful answers. And yeah, we look forward to keeping in touch. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Good luck to you both.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.